welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're really getting into the lives of Ruth Campbell and David Cowan.
A fascinating couple.
We're going to look at their whole journey, really. Virginia to Tennessee, David's time in the legislature there, which is quite significant.
Yeah, it really was. And then the tougher parts, too. Their deaths.
Right, the circumstances around that.
Wow.
And then Ruth's next chapter, heading out to Texas.
Quite a story. We've been digging through, historical documents, research notes, trying to pull out the core insights.
Exactly. The mission here is to piece together their lives, understand their impact, see what their story tells us.
And hopefully give our listeners a clear picture, getting straight to the heart of it.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Ruth Campbell, she was born in Cecil County, Maryland, back in 1784.
Right, Maryland. But her family moved pretty early on, didn't they?
They did, yeah, to Lee County, Virginia, around 1787. So she grew up there mostly.
And David Cowan, his origins are a bit murkier.
A little bit, yeah. Born around 1780, they think, in Wythe County, Virginia. But pinning down his parents is tough.
Just too many Cowans in the area at the time.
That seems to be the issue. The records, they first show him clearly in Lee County tax lists, lower end of Powell's Valley. That's around 1803.
Ah, okay. So he's established there just before he and Ruth likely met.
Exactly.
Yep.
They get married around 1805, also in Lee County.
Though we don't have the actual marriage records.
No, that's one of those frustrating historical gaps. Courthouse fire took out the early records. Happens a lot.
It does. But we know they were there, right? In the Rose Hill area.
Yeah, living on Martins Creek. They had 176 acres there.
Which they then sold in 1808 to a Thomas Hardy.
Right. So their time in Virginia together as a married couple wasn't actually that long before they moved on.
The 1808 sale, it feels like a real signal. Time to head west.
Well, and the timing makes sense, too, with what was happening historically.
You mean like the Treaty of Tellico Plains?
Mm-hmm.
Around 1805.
Yeah. Exactly. That treaty opened up huge areas in Tennessee territory. It was a massive pull for people looking for land and opportunity.
A real magnet for migration.
So that leads us right into their move to Tennessee. Probably around 1806, David and Ruth's brother Joseph Campbell came along too.
And there's a suggestion they might have traveled with a specific group.
Yeah, possibly the Elisha Pepper Caravan. They were heading towards the McMinnville area, which is now Warren County.
And it wasn't just them. Ruth's family followed.
Mm-hmm. Her parents, some uncles, they also ended up in Warren County not long after.
Right.
It speaks to those family networks,
Definitely. People moved together, supported each other, essential for settling new territory. That caravan, Elisha Pepper's, was just one example of how communities moved and reformed.
But like Virginia, they didn't stay put in Warren County for too long either.
No. Where did they head next?
By 1810, we find them down in Lincoln County, Tennessee.
Okay, Lincoln County. How do we know that?
Well, we've got court records. David and Ruth registered their cattle marks there, together with her brother Joseph.
Ah, the cattle marks. That's a solid piece of evidence. Really practical, everyday stuff that anchors them there.
Totally. It shows they're setting up, farming, participating in the local economy, and David also bought land there. 84 acres on Coldwater Creek in 1811.
And then sold it a few years later.
Yeah, sold it in 1815. So buying and selling, establishing themselves.
It really paints a picture of them becoming part of Lincoln County community, not just passing through.
And it's in Lincoln County where David Cowan really steps onto a bigger stage, a public role.
Right. This is where he gets involved in politics.
Yes. We found this really interesting mention in a Texas newspaper, of all places, the Belton Independent.
Texas. What did it say?
It mentioned, years later, of course, that he had represented Lincoln County in the Tennessee state legislature.
Wow. Okay, so not just a local official, but state level. That's significant for the time.
Absolutely. Think about early Tennessee statehood. Being in the legislature meant you were involved in, well, everything. Writing laws, setting up counties, shaping the state's future.
It shows he must have been pretty well respected in Lincoln County to get elected.
Definitely suggests that. He was right there in the mix during a really foundational period for Tennessee.
Do we know much about his actual time in the legislature? Specifics.
The sources we have don't detail specific bills or debates he was part of, unfortunately, but just knowing he served tells us a lot about his standing.
True. It underlines his influence. But politics then, like now I suppose, wasn't always smooth sailing.
No, definitely not. We see that clearly in 1823. There was a local election in Fayetteville, Tennessee that got, well, pretty nasty.
Contentious, yeah. And David was caught up in it.
He was. He faced some serious political attacks afterwards. Accusations were flying.
So how did he handle that?
What's really interesting is how he responded. He didn't just let it simmer. He wrote a letter.
A public letter?
Yeah. Published it in the local paper, the Village Messenger. Took his case directly to the people.
That says something about his character, standing up for himself publicly.
It really does. He flat out denied any wrongdoing, any misrepresentation. He had this great quote. Let me find it. Here. "I never solicited a vote upon false pretenses."
Wow. Pretty direct.
Very. And he appealed to the community's fairness, trusting in, as he put it, honest and discerning citizens.
It really humanizes him, doesn't it? Shows the pressure, the importance of reputation back then. You had to defend your honor very publicly.
Absolutely. A real snapshot of the challenges of political life in the 1820s.
But then, just a few years after that election fight, tragedy strikes.
Yeah, this is the really sad part of the story. October 2nd, 1826.
David Cowan and Ruth's brother, Joseph Campbell, both died on the same day.
In Fayetteville, yes. And the circumstances are unclear. There's always been this local tradition, a story maybe, of murder.
But nothing definite in the records we have.
No concrete proof of foul play cited in our sources. What we do have is a court order from Lincoln County, dated just days later, October 13th, 1826.
What did the order say?
It ordered the county to set aside a year's support for the widows, plural. The widows of David Cowan and Joseph Campbell.
Ah, that strongly implies a sudden, simultaneous event, doesn't it? Something unexpected that left both families needing immediate help.
Exactly. It points to a sudden shared loss. And then David's estate inventory was filed the following January, 1827. It all fits a timeline of sudden death.
Such a blow to the family. Two key members at once.
Immense. But it's also interesting, even after his death, David's name seems to have carried weight in the community.
How so?
Well, get this. In 1832, 6 years later, a precinct election was actually held at Ruth Cowan's home on Bradshaw's Creek.
Really? At the widow's house? That is remarkable. It suggests the family, maybe Ruth herself, still held considerable respect.
It certainly seems that way, a sign of their enduring standing. As for David's final resting place,
We don't know for sure.
not definitively, but there's a local Cowan cemetery near Bradshaw's Creek. It seems like a very probable location.
Makes sense. Close to where Ruth was still living at the time of that election.
So after David's death, Ruth's life obviously changes dramatically. She's a widow, she has children.
And eventually she makes another huge move. Westward again.
Yes. She and the children leave Fayetteville. They head towards Texas.
That must have taken incredible courage. A widow leading her family across the country in the mid-1800s.
Absolutely. It wasn't until about 1852, quite a while later, that she actually arrives in Llano County, Texas.
And she wasn't alone.
No, she arrives with two of her sons, David Calvin and Gideon Cowan.
Llano County, Texas. So starting over again, essentially.
Completely. And there's this amazing account of their arrival. Apparently, some local Native Americans pointed them towards a valuable resource.
Oh, what was that?
A salt bed.
Yeah.
Near the Colorado River.
Salt. Hugely important back then.
Crucial. And this discovery led them to establish the Bluffton Tow Salt Works.
The family started a salt works.
They did. And it became quite successful. It was even known as the Confederate States of America Salt Works during the Civil War because it supplied so much salt to the cause.
Wow. From tragedy in Tennessee to becoming key suppliers of a vital resource in Texas. That's quite a turnaround.
Isn't it? It shows incredible resilience and, frankly, business sense from Ruth and her sons, adapting and thriving after such loss.
A really powerful example of frontier entrepreneurship.
Sadly, nature intervened again. A cyclone apparently destroyed the salt works in 1871.
Oh, no. After all that work.
Yeah. But Ruth lived on. She spent her later years living quietly with her son, David Calvin.
How old was she when she passed?
She lived to be 86, a long life, considering everything she went through. She's buried in the Tow Cemetery in Tow, Texas.
Tow, Texas. Near where the salt works presumably was.
Exactly. And just to round out the family picture, we know David and Ruth had 5 children who lived to adulthood.
Right. You mentioned David Calvin and Gideon Perry, who went to Texas.
Yes, and also Elizabeth, who married Thorpe, Luther M. Cowan, and Joseph Vincent Cowan, the youngest, born around the time David died.
So quite a legacy spread across different states and different eras.
Definitely. When you pull it all together, Ruth Campbell and David Cowan, their lives really spanned so much.
Migration, building communities, political involvement in early Tennessee.
The sudden tragedy, that mystery surrounding their deaths.
And then Ruth's incredible strength, picking up, moving again, making a significant mark in Texas with that salt works. It's quite the arc.
It really is. And for us, looking back, the aha moments are things like, the specifics of David's political defense. That quote is amazing.
Yeah, and Ruth's role in Texas, not just following her sons, but part of establishing something vital. It shows the complexity of individual lives within these larger historical movements.
Exactly. It's about family, community, politics, loss, resilience, all woven together.
The whole tapestry of early American life, really, seen through one family's experience.
So here's a final thought to leave with our listeners. Thinking about Ruth and David, you see how these individual stories, these ups and downs, really build the foundation of our history.
Yeah, their journey connects Virginia, Tennessee, Texas, politics, settlement, even industry with the salt works.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other stories, what unexpected connections and legacies are waiting to be uncovered in our own towns, our own local histories?
Absolutely. There were probably countless fascinating lives just waiting for a closer look.